We know that the White Hats and President Trump and Q freed Kim Jong Un. And we know that North Korea was under control of the cabal and the deep state. I don't think that Kim Jong Un is the monster the mainstream media has depicted him to be. I mean, they depict President Trump as being a monster, and he's the one that's saving humanity from the leap.
This is Liz Crokin, QAnoner extraordinaire, nutter butter of epic proportions, naturally. God, she is unhinged. Seriously. Oh, my God. Well, she went on this podcast recently to talk about a speech that she gave at Donald Trump's home, Mar-a-Lago. And I actually have the speech that she gave there, that we're going to listen to that in a second. I've heard some other people talking about this clip of her referring to it and talking about conspiracy theories and stuff, but I haven't seen this clip bouncing around yet, so this will be a first for most of YouTube, I think. Check out what she had to say here. Mid-December 2022, she comes on to talk about how much more welcoming the world is to people who believe the way that she does.
I got the privilege and the honor to speak at Mar-a-Lago about Pizzagate at the fundraiser, at the cocktail reception that we had outside by the pool before we went to the ballroom for dinner. And, 6 years ago, I was a lone soldier fighting this. No one wanted to even say the word Pizzagate because the media had so successfully redefined what it is, and it was so taboo.
Oh my God, this is crazy. If you don't know what Pizzagate is, it's this bizarre conspiracy theory that came around, I think during the 2016 election cycle. There's a guy named John Podesta, I think is his name. He was Hillary Clinton's campaign manager, I think. And he was a victim of something called a spear phishing attack. Basically, they targeted Podesta in these campaigns to basically send him fake links to his Apple ID, for example. He'd get an email or a text message or something saying, we need you to sign into your Apple ID to resolve some issue, or your PayPal account or something. And when he clicks on it, it looks exactly like Apple's website or Gmail's website or whatever host he has for his email account. I don't know who hosts his email. It'll look exactly like it. So he would type in his username and his password, and it would redirect him to the actual website where he has to type it in again. It's a weird little bug, but you think nothing of it. Well, now the person who sent you the fake link in the first place has your login information. So Hillary's campaign manager was the victim of a spear phishing attack. That's what that's called. And they got his login for his email address. They log into his email. They download all of the emails from his computer. They send this is Russia that's doing this, by the by. This is proven without a shadow of a doubt, unequivocally. They send the emails into WikiLeaks to Julian Assange, and Julian Assange releases the Podesta emails, is what they were called. QAnon conspiracy theorists. QAnon was young. It was in its infancy. In fact, this conspiracy theory didn't even start with QAnon. It came along before QAnon, which didn't actually come along until 2017. But QAnon eventually picked up the Pizzagate conspiracy. So these conspiracy theorists start combing through these emails and find mentions of Comet Ping Pong and Pizza Parlor or whatever. It's just this pizza place in Washington, D.C. where politicians go to eat sometimes. And they fixated on it, believing that there's some secret message embedded in this. Guys talking about getting pizza and hot dogs and soda. It must mean something other than he wants to get pizza and hot dogs and soda, right? So they thought that it was code for basically human trafficking of children. That is the Pizzagate conspiracy theory. So there's this massive belief currently to this day that there's a basement in Comet Ping Pong Pizza Parlor or whatever it's called, where they send children through tunnels underground, and it's this big trafficking ring that happens. And it got so much reach in social media that somebody actually showed up with a weapon ready to do something about it, ready to find this basement and free these kids. There is no basement in Comet Ping Pong. It doesn't exist. There is no conspiracy. So anyway, that's what Liz Crokin is talking about. The Pizzagate conspiracy theory. Apparently she gave a big talk at Mar-a-Lago right in front of Donald Trump and all of his supporters about how real Pizzagate is and how we should super care about what's happening with it. Like I said, Pizzagate happened before QAnon actually existed, but QAnon picked it up eventually. There was a period of time where QAnon didn't really believe that Pizzagate was real, but eventually it did pick it up. And all of the people who were willing to believe that Pizzagate was real in the first place were also likely to blindly accept what QAnon had to say. So it was kind of the same, fan base working there. Anyway, keep listening to what Liz Crokin had to say here.
Wanted to even say the word Pizzagate because the media had so successfully redefined what it is, and it was so
No, they didn't redefine it. It was nonsense from the start. Pizzagate was nonsense from the start that actually got people hurt.
taboo, and I can't even tell you how badly I was ostracized for talking about Pizzagate,
Rightfully so. It was nonsense, and it got people hurt. Again, there were actually people that showed up there to protest and busted in with weapons to force their way into this basement. Seriously, a basement that does not exist. They posted pictures of the staff there and their family and stuff. No joke, it got real. The staff members of Comet Ping Pong were targeted directly by these people in disturbing ways. Bomb threats and all kinds of stuff.
ostracized for talking about Pizzagate, exposing Pizzagate, and how many friends I lost, and what a lonely
Good.
journey it was. So to go from, that to being at Mar-a-Lago and being able to freely talk about Pizzagate there and say this is real and there's no more tiptoeing around it anymore was just an incredible experience.
So the bottom line is that Donald Trump is courting these people. He is trying to attract the QAnon types. As a matter of fact, interestingly enough, there are a bunch of QAnoners out there that Donald Trump specifically invited, like QAnon celebrities, invited to his 2024 announcement speech for president. He's courting these people. He wants them to be part of his power base. He wants to be a religious leader to these people. I mean, here's just one example of a full-blown QAnon celebrity. This is why this guy is famous for being a QAnoner. At least as big as me, like his channel. He's on Telegram and some other places, and he is at least as famous and as influential as I am. Maybe even more so. This is Brandon Dilley.
I just got invited to Mar-a-Lago for President Trump's announcement tomorrow night. So I am going down to Mar-a-Lago tomorrow. I'm leaving immediately after the show is over. I am flying in.
Okay, let me give you a little tip there. Brandon, I think. Yeah, Brendan, I'm sorry. Yeah, Brendan is his name. If you have a voice like that, you can't yell. I'm sorry. It's not acceptable. You can't do it, so just letting you know.
I'm being picked up by mad liberals at the airport, and I am heading to Mar-a-Lago for an announcement from President Donnie J. Trump. And I am extremely nervous about this because, as you know, I am a basement-dwelling nerd who lives in his mother's house and doesn't normally go out into the public.
So anyways, point is Donald Trump's been courting these people for a while. He knows exactly where his power base is, and it is in QAnon. He knows he can convince these gullible suckers of absolutely anything. So here is the actual speech that she gave at Mar-a-Lago, mid-December 2022. Check this out.
And then we had Balenciaga come out. And I know most of you are probably aware that Balenciaga was exploiting children in their ads, but it's also important to note that some of the top people working at Balenciaga.
Yeah, the whole Balenciaga thing, I don't want to get into it. There was just what seemed like a single guy who thought it would be clever to place a few specific things in frame to mess with people, and it's frustrating and ridiculous and stupid. But I don't think there's like, it's not a signal to like all of the other, you know, sick people out there looking for, I don't know. Blah, blah, blah. It's like back in the 1980s, there's this satanic panic where people believed that Satanists were slipping secret messages to each other, like little codes to each other through the things that they purchase and through TV shows. And it was just little symbols like Jay-Z throwing up the triangle symbol to show he's part of the Illuminati. Why would anybody throw out little hints like that? That's ridiculous. Just really think about this for like 3 seconds, and you'll realize how stupid and ridiculous this idea is. There are no Satanists out there. There are no like CSA perpetrators out there trying to signal to each other. It was just a guy at Balenciaga messing around and being an idiot, more than likely. Now, if there was something illegal happening, arrest them. Investigate and arrest. But it doesn't seem like there's anything illegal happening at Balenciaga. They're just being idiots, it seems to me. But you know, she's got to make a conspiracy out of everything, right? I mean, she's the one that believes in Pizzagate of all things.
To note that some of the top people working at Balenciaga were also openly promoting cannibalism, satanic ritualistic abuse, blood rituals, child abuse. I mean, some of the...
Wait, she says they were openly promoting these things? Well, if it's open, then it means the public should be able to find it, right? If it's not open, it wouldn't be easy to find. We should be able to have proof of this. Where's the proof? Are you trying to tell me that she's completely lying about this? You mean to tell me that she's full of it? That they were not openly doing these things? That she's looking for some way to validate her own beliefs and ideas without providing evidence? Oh, and again, what she said there about satanic rituals and all that stuff, this is nonsense. There are not satanic rituals taking place. It's like we live in the 80s all over again with the satanic panic. This is nuts, dude.
Child abuse, I mean, some of the worst stuff you've ever seen. Now, when Pizzagate came out in 2016...
This is her speech at Mar-a-Lago, remember. Donald Trump invited her to Mar-a-Lago, knowing who she is and what she is famous for, and invited her to give a speech about Pizzagate, Balenciaga, and all the other garbage.
A lot of associates of the Clintons shared very similar content on their social media pages. And I encourage you to look into John and to Tony Podesta's art.
Oh my God, dude. Back to the Podesta stuff, Podesta emails. Remember, this is the origin of Pizzagate. The dude was having a normal conversation about meeting somebody for pizza at a pizza place, Comet Ping Pong something or other, and they spun that up into a conspiracy theory where people were being trafficked and they had a basement with tunnels under there, and there's a huge ring when Trump is trying to bust in and fix everything and arrest all the perpetrators and all this other. It's just crazy, dude. And here we are back at Podesta all over again. She has an unhealthy obsession and really needs mental help. No joke. You know, it's like there is definitely a difference between a delusion, a full-blown clinical delusion as defined in the DSM-5, the Diagnostics and Statistical Manual of Mental Conditions, right? There's a difference between that and the type of delusion that we see coming from people, televangelists or ultra-religious people who believe this thing or that thing or whatever else. There's a difference. And the difference is, hypothetically, it should be possible to cure somebody with medicine if this is actually a clinically delusional state that they are experiencing. It should all come down to a brain state, like a problem with a chemical imbalance in their brain, right? if it's actually a clinical case of delusion, it should be able to be cured with medicine, hypothetically. Maybe the medicine doesn't exist yet, but it should be able to, right? In her case, I don't think it could be cured with medicine because it doesn't seem to be a chemical imbalance. It seems to be a mass delusion, a shared delusion that isn't necessarily caused by brain states. It's caused by brainwashing. So delusion probably isn't the right word to describe what she's experiencing, but it is absolutely indistinguishable from full-blown clinical delusion as described in the DSM-5. It is absolutely crazy to watch.
To look into John and to Tony Podesta's art. Tony Podesta had art all over his home promoting.
Remember, this is a speech at Mar-a-Lago in front of Donald Trump.
John Podesta had a painting in his campaign office as he was working for Hillary Clinton's campaign depicting cannibalism. Balenciaga, Pizzagate, the Podestas, it all ties together. And I also would encourage you to research the name Rachel Chandler.
Yeah, I have no idea who that is. I may end up blanking that word out after. I should probably have looked into that. I remember thinking that I should look into it before airing that word, but yeah, I may cut it out. Anyway. Indistinguishable from delusion. Indistinguishable. Is it right to call this delusion? I mean, it's probably not clinical delusion, most likely. Maybe it is. But they look exactly the same, man. And she gave this speech in front of Trump and I don't even know how many other people. Before we continue, I just wanted to mention something. If you like what I do and you want to see me continue to do it, you can support me in a few ways. First, there's Patreon. That's probably the best way. But if you want to get something back for your support, you can check out my Teespring. Or you can check out my Telltale Unfiltered channel. I go through long-form, unhinged sermons from all kinds of people, from Hank Kunneman to Greg Locke to Jehovah's Witnesses. So give it a look. Links are in the description. Okay, now back to the video. That is not even close to the strangest thing she said. Not even close. Listen to what she has to say here about brainwashing kids.
The Illuminati, the elites, they use the Wizard of Oz to mind control child slaves. They use different media. Alice in Wonderland's another one. They use different Disney movies and certain films to program children. And part of the programming is having them watch these films, and they also them they physically them because the splits their personality and creates different personalities.
Yeah, this is all straight out of the QAnon handbook. This is part of the belief system. This is absolutely unhinged stuff. Straight up unhinged stuff. This is, again, not even the craziest. We're about to get to the craziest stuff. We're almost there. But the fact that she believes this stuff in the first place is truly disgusting. Their heads are absolutely in the gutter 24/7. For them to even come up with something like this. This is a pure, blatant lie, obviously. They are not... Who is they, anyways? They, this mysterious... ambiguous group out there, they, that are trying to brainwash children or whatever, they are not trying to brainwash children by using the Wizard of Oz and the movie Alice in Wonderland. And did you catch what she said at the end? That they split their personalities, they shatter their personalities by showing them this or that or whatever else. No, they don't. It doesn't work that way in psychology. Prove to me you don't know anything about psychology in 10 words or less. They have no idea what they're talking about. But the truly disturbing thing about all of this is that they came up with this stuff in the first place. To have even said this stuff is deeply disturbing. It means somebody sat down and came up with this stuff, came up with these ideas about how they would go about abducting kids or taking advantage of them or whatever other thing, and they wrote that down and pretended that people to the left of hunting the homeless for sport are doing that. Like, seriously, where are their heads that they believe things like this?
They physically
because the splits their personality and creates different personalities. So then they are able to program them and control them, and they virtually become called MK Ultra programming.
It's completely made up. All of it is completely made up. I don't even think that's the worst of it. What we're watching right now is an unfiltered, unadulterated, full-blown QAnoner spreading her QAnon belief system. I mean, it's bizarre, but it's honestly fascinating to pick up on what they believe, learn about the beliefs that they have, and it's extremely valuable to learn about this stuff because QAnon likes to use subtle messaging and dog whistles because they believe that's what everybody else is doing, like all the left-wing liberals who are like taking advantage of people. They're all sending out secret messages and all this other garbage. So QAnon is actually openly sending out secret messages. They claim like we're putting out this message so that, all the other QAnoners will catch on to this and they'll see it and they'll know, hey, that's for me. Like absolutely unhinged stuff, dude. Mid-August 2022. I just want to give you an idea of the types of people Trump's inviting to his home to give speeches.
The white hats tainted.
White hats, by the by, are supposed to be like part of a military group that's secretly in control. They're the good guys that are swaying things in the righteous direction. They're the ones that got Trump put into office. They fought off the bad guys in the military, and they would side with Trump in a second. Other QAnon leaders claim that they were appointed by the white hats. There is no white hat military. It doesn't exist. It's just a made-up secret organization of people who are working for good in their eyes in the military. Anyway, keep listening here.
The white hats tainted the elite's adrenochrome supply with the coronavirus, and that's
okay. Adrenochrome is this supposed secret drug that elites take that gives them this crazy high or something. It's not even real. I mean, there is adrenochrome. It's a byproduct of adrenaline in our system. It's not hard to obtain. You can buy it on eBay. It's out there. And it doesn't give you a high. People who have taken adrenochrome just report having a mild headache. That's it. It doesn't really do anything for you. They came up with this idea that it's a drug from the movie Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. I saw this movie years ago. It was hilarious with Johnny Depp. But they actually believe that it really is like a real drug that people take. And their claim is you have to get it from a live victim, basically. And it has to be a kid, ideally. And that's why all the trafficking is taking place. It's completely made up, all of it. But, this is their pretext for justifying literally any action to save the children. It's nuts.
With the coronavirus, and that's why so many members of the elites are getting the coronavirus, if indeed they do have the coronavirus.
Yeah, this is from 2021, I believe. So she says, she said the white hats in the military tainted the elite's adrenochrome supply with coronavirus, and that's why they have coronavirus, if they have coronavirus. Well, which is it? Do they have it? If they have it, how do you know they got it from the quote-unquote white hats tainting their supply? If the white hats have access to the supply of the elites or whatever, why don't they just arrest them for this stuff? Like, no, just the most rudimentary amount of thought put into anything along this line, any one of these steps would just shatter it to pieces. But she and her listeners are not putting in the most basic amount of thought.
So adrenochrome is a drug that the elites love. It comes from children. The drug is extracted from the pituitary gland of
adrenal gland is what she meant to say. Again, it's a byproduct of adrenaline in the blood. It does not give you a high or anything. It's just oxygenated adrenaline. That's it. If people wanted adrenaline, you can get pure adrenaline in the form of an EpiPen. People have EpiPens. You can buy EpiPens in case you go into anaphylactic shock or something. They're not that rare, not that hard to get your hands on. Doesn't produce some crazy high or any of that stuff. if you want something that will produce a high like that, just jump straight to coke or meth or something like that. Like, you don't need to go through this huge song and dance with, taking kids and trafficking and extracting adrenochrome and blah, blah, blah. You don't need to do any of that. Like, this is all made up. Again, every step of logic along the way is nonsense and can be knocked down with the most basic critical thinking. And they don't do it. They don't put in the most basic thought. They just hear it repeated from somebody they trust, Liz Crokin in this case, and then they repeat it to their family members. Blows me away.
Children. It's sold on the black market.
No, it isn't. It's easy to access.
It's the drug of the elites.
No.
It's their favorite drug. It is beyond evil. It's demonic. It is so sick. So there is a theory that...
What she means is, I'm about to make something up completely. Or, I have absolutely no evidence for what I'm about to say, but I'm going to say it anyways.
That the white hats tainted their adrenochrome supply.
Okay, she's repeating herself now. She said this she's just going in circles at this point. She's said this stuff 3 times already. Okay, great. We heard that at the beginning.
Their adrenochrome supply with the coronavirus.
Oh my God, dude. She is absolutely unhinged. And sadly, I had to censor a bunch of stuff out. I can't just play stuff all willy-nilly on here. Understandably, there are kids that watch this stuff too, so you got to be careful what you play on this thing, but it gets even crazier than what you've seen, to say the least. Well, we're over time on this segment, but let's just watch one more here. Late March 2020. This is after COVID appeared, and we were dealing with some lockdowns here or there, right? Like state-level lockdowns. I don't think there's ever a federal lockdown.
If you're frustrated that you're self-quarantined right now, if you're pissed that you can't go to a restaurant right now, or you can't go to the gym or whatever.
Remember, QAnoners were super opposed to lockdowns. They thought they were trying to do some weird population control thing or some other nonsense, right? Keep listening.
Just remember, the reason why you're self-quarantined right now is because of these sickos. So be mad at them. It's President Trump and the white hats that have sacrificed everything to eradicate this evil from the earth.
Okay. I'm not sure. Is she saying that at the time she believed that COVID was used to eradicate the evil sickos from the earth? Is she saying that Trump planned this whole thing and that the lockdowns were intended to keep QAnoners safe while Trump eradicated the bad guys?
And if you feel like complaining because you're bored in your home for a few weeks, let me tell you something.
Please tell me.
If you being bored in your home for a few weeks is the biggest sacrifice you have to pay, so are wiped off the streets and another child.
Had me in the first half, not gonna lie. If the biggest price you have to pay is to be bored, okay, I'm with you. Go on. I like this. Absolutely. If that's the price you have to pay to keep people safe, and then she goes completely off the rails. It's not actually about keeping people safe. It's about some absolutely unhinged QAnon stuff.
Is never again. That is a really, really small price to pay.
Okay, yeah. So that's Liz Crokin. God, she is so entertaining. Some of the crazy stuff she says. Oh my God. You don't usually come across somebody who just comes out there and says this kind of thing. Not often, right? And she was at Mar-a-Lago giving a Trump. I'm sorry. I mean, giving a speech at Donald Trump's, we should make Trump a verb, right? Giving a Trump to somebody. She was giving a speech at Donald Trump's house or resort or whatever you call it. Absolutely unhinged stuff, dude. If there's one thing that I think that we can reliably guarantee, It's that Donald Trump has decided to lean into and appeal to QAnoners and the far right. He wants them to be his people. He wants to prop up QAnon to the best of his ability, and I think we're going to see more of that as the election draws closer, the 2024 election. Anyway, let me know what you think about that. Let me know if you want to see more stuff like this in the comments. Blue Ridger 28, a bored suburban mom with an internet connection. Pretty much. That's what this person is. Absolutely unhinged. I have no idea how she came to these conclusions, but my God, dude, it's entertaining to listen to some of this.
The White Hats and President Trump and Q freed Kim Jong-un. And we know that North Korea was under control of the cabal and the deep state. I don't think that Kim Jong-un is the monster the mainstream media has depicted him to be. I mean, they depict President Trump as...
You know, QAnon is actually very closely linked with Russia. A lot of pro-Russian conspiracy theories come straight out of QAnon, which tells me that they're being fed to QAnon. There's absolutely no other reason that some of these very ultra-specific pro-Putin, pro-Russia conspiracy theories would filter through QAnon. Like anti-Ukraine, pro-war conspiracies come straight out of the QAnon pipeline. That tells me Putin has his fingers on the scales. It tells me they have a line straight from Putin. So when you hear things coming out of QAnon, you should probably think about how that thing would benefit Russia in the end. I find it really interesting that she talked about Kim Jong-un, of all people, and him being freed from the deep state and all that other stuff, talking positively about Kim Jong-un, like he has some special role to play. That is probably straight from Russia. Seriously. I just tried to look it up. Without further info, there are way too many Rachel Chandlers to narrow it down. Interesting. I appreciate the super chat, Mark Smith. Well, here's the thing. You're not on old Telegram, are you? I have access to some far right pro-Trump Telegram channels that are invite only because I've tried to infiltrate some of these groups. Let's see. Let me see if I just search her name. Rachel Chandler. Stu Peters is talking about her. She's also mentioned in the Donald Trump subreddit and the Praying Medic. Will be interesting to see if Rachel Chandler turns out to be one of the witnesses testifying against Ghislaine Maxwell, I think is how it's pronounced. Allison Mack testified in the Nexium case. Okay, so is Rachel Chandler testifying against Ghislaine Maxwell? Here's another mention. This is in the Donald Trump Telegram channel, 65,000 subbies, invite only. If the records become unsealed, much will be revealed. Watch the news for Rachel Chandler. Q. Oh, it's a Q drop. Okay. Mystery third conspirator is on the docket. What if her record becomes unsealed and spirit cooking becomes unveiled to the normies? How poetic if Chandler is the third candle to finally light up the night. I don't know what any of this means. Chandler is short for child handler, supposedly. These people are sick. I guess this is supposed to be some kind of a secret message. Chandler is child handler. If the records become unsealed, much will be revealed. Watch the news for Rachel Chandler. There you go. It's just one of their deep lore Q posts or whatever. If you don't know how QAnon works, it's basically a guy, a single poster, a guy who posts on a message board that calls himself Q Clearance Patriot, and he posts cryptic stuff like this. If the records become unsealed, much will be revealed. Watch the news for Rachel Chandler. Basically meaningless garbage that nobody understands, and the QAnoners come along and they try to make sense of it. That's it. They come up with all kinds of conspiracy theories revolving around it, and that's what apparently Liz Crokin was referring to with Rachel Chandler or whatever other thing. It's all complete nonsense. Only 3 of the Telegram channels I follow mentioned it. The Praying Medic, top QAnon interpreter. The Donald Trump Telegram channel, which is really big. It's probably the top Telegram channel for Trump. It's also invite only. And then Stu Peters mentioned it too. He's a complete nutcase. Apparently, according to Stu Peters, she's tied to Jeffrey Epstein. I don't even know if that's true. Who knows? So anyway, yeah, who really knows what goes through these people's heads? They're completely disconnected from reality in basically every way. So that's Rachel Chandler, apparently. Thanks for the super chat. When you look into witchcraft trials, female victims often thought their own children were being targeted, while the men thought it was them personally being targeted or their possessions. Feel familiar? That's kind of interesting. Yeah, there's a lot of moral panic over children. That is how moral panic is spread. That's why that's part of the reason why QAnon got a foothold so quickly, was by using the Save the Children hashtag. Save the Children memes. Back in the 80s, the satanic panic was all about saving children from satanic rituals and stuff like that. It was all made up from the very beginning. But if you can get people freaked out about something happening to their kids, they're being groomed, they're being sacrificed or ritually abused by the Church of Satan, or they're being trafficked by Podesta in Pizzagate or whatever other nonsense, you can get people whipped into a blood frenzy over that. They'll be willing to do anything to resolve it. Anything. And we see the exact same pattern right now with the LGBT community that we did in the 80s with the satanic panic. We see the exact same pattern with the trans community, claiming that they're trying to convert our children. I mean, QAnon itself is just a Nazi cult rebranded. All of the claims that they make about, elites and all that stuff, it's all just rebranded Nazi propaganda. Seriously, if you don't believe me on that, I've released some videos on my main channel about how similar they are. It's basically just a rebranded Nazi cult.